Welcome, everyone. Have you ever felt utterly drained? Like you're caught in battles that simply refuse to end, whether that's, in your professional life, your relationships, or maybe even just inside your own thoughts?
Oh, absolutely. It's a feeling I think resonates deeply with a lot of people, isn't it? That
Mm,
relentless pressure.
yeah, that constant internal or sometimes external demand to push back, to fight, to defend yourself.
Hmm.
So today we're embarking on a really fascinating exploration. What if, for some of these struggles, the fight isn't even yours to begin with?
Right.
And what if the actual path to peace, and yes, maybe even to profound victory, lies not in striving harder, but in a completely different approach?
That's the core question, isn't it?
It is. We've been immersed in insights from a really compelling online devotional that offers a surprising perspective on these kinds of personal and spiritual struggles. It draws wisdom from ancient texts and some really powerful
Very
metaphors.
powerful.
And our aim for this session is really to meticulously unpack its core message, that the battle is not yours. We want to extract some practical, impactful wisdom on how you can genuinely rest in a deeper, kind of unshakable power.
And find those aha moments.
Exactly,
Yeah.
those moments that can fundamentally shift your perspective.
It's such a compelling premise.
Yeah,
What's truly fascinating here, I think, is how these insights directly challenge our ingrained human response to
our
conflict.
default setting.
Totally. We are almost instinctively conditioned to confront, to defend, to assert control over our circumstances. Yet this material suggests, well, a radical alternative,
Yeah,
one that moves beyond that immediate impulse to just react.
yeah.
So we'll be thoroughly exploring the concept of surrender,
Okay.
understanding the critical difference between, say, productive endurance and just futile warfare.
hmm
We'll uncover the surprising power found in restraint and delve into the transformative nature of obedience. It's a journey that genuinely compels you to redefine what true strength actually looks like in practice.
That's such an important framing because it really does challenge so much of what we're taught, and in a world that constantly glorifies relentless effort and individual striving.
Right. It's a hustle culture.
Exactly. It introduces us to a core idea that might initially feel entirely counterintuitive. The material opens with a really powerful analogy, doesn't it? About a skilled surgeon. Could you maybe set that scene for us and explain its relevance here?
Certainly. Okay, so imagine a skilled surgeon in an operating room. Visualize their presence, the precision in their movements, the profound calmness in their demeanor, the sheer power, really, emanating from their knowledge and their finely honed skills.
Okay, got it.
This surgeon doesn't walk into the OR and start arguing with the sickness,
All
right?
right.
They don't waste a single moment debating symptoms with the patient or engaging in some fruitless debate with the disease itself.
No.
Instead, they operate with precision tools, guided by years of rigorous preparation, extensive training, and a deep, unshakable understanding of precisely what needs to be done. Now, think about the patient's role in this whole scenario. The patient must surrender to the process.
Mm-hmm.
They have to place their complete trust in the hands of the one who has been trained for this monumental task. They lie still, understanding that their well-being, their very healing, depends entirely on this act of surrender. This, as the source material highlights, is precisely the kind of surrender we are called to embrace in the spiritual and personal battles of our lives. The hard truth this source lays bare is, well, it's profoundly simple, yet challenging.
Right.
We are not the healer. We are the ones on the operating table.
And that distinction clarifies so much, doesn't it? Because I think so many of us, maybe without even realizing it, default to trying to be the surgeon in our own lives, even when we're clearly the patient.
Exactly.
It's where, as the material points out, we make a common yet really critical mistake.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Far too often, we rush headlong into battles we were never equipped to win on our own. We find ourselves engaged in what the material calls spiritual warfare, swinging wildly, shouting in frustration, stressing ourselves to the breaking point,
Yeah.
instead of finding rest in the profound power of God, who, as we know, has never lost a battle.
Mm.
This message, in particular, speaks directly to those of you listening who feel utterly drained, who feel like you've been swinging in the dark, fighting invisible forces with a very visible, very palpable weariness.
Yeah, you feel it in your bones.
You do. It's for the one who, amidst all the struggle, has simply forgotten that the battle is not yours to win or lose. It belongs to God.
Hmm.
And this brings us to a fundamental question, really. What does it truly mean to surrender when every fiber of our being screams at us to fight, to control, to assert ourselves and our will?
That's a crucial question because for many, I think the word surrender immediately conjures images of weakness, maybe giving up or just being passive.
Right, like inaction.
Exactly. But the material makes it incredibly clear that this is not about doing nothing. In fact, it provides a powerful instruction from ancient texts, specifically 2 Chronicles 20.1 in which declares, "You will not need to fight in this battle. Position yourselves, stand still, and see the salvation of the Lord who is with you.
Hmm.
O Judah and Jerusalem, do not fear or be dismayed. Tomorrow go out against them, for the Lord is with you."
Wow.
That verse isn't just a comforting thought, is it? It's a very clear, actionable instruction.
Yeah, it's a command, almost.
It is.
Yeah.
It reminds us that God isn't inviting us to be passive. He is commanding us to stand, to take a specific position, to observe his movement on our behalf. It's an active waiting, a strategic stillness, not a retreat.
Precisely. This wisdom isn't about inaction, it's about discerning and then executing the right action,
Right.
which in many profound instances is the act of surrender itself.
Mhm.
It's an active, conscious letting go. Think about what we are so often asked to release. Our need to meticulously control every outcome, our relentless drive to win every argument, our inherent need to always be proven right, or to appear strong, or to constantly maintain control.
All those things we cling to.
Exactly. And if we return to that surgical analogy, the surgeon doesn't need the patient's help in the operation itself. The surgeon requires only the patient's stillness and unwavering trust.
Stillness and trust.
What's truly fascinating here is the deliberate active choice required to cease fighting, to consciously choose stillness and to trust. This is fundamentally different from inaction. It represents a powerful redirection of energy.
How so?
Well, instead of pouring our finite and precious emotional, mental, and physical resources into battles that are not truly ours, we are invited to redirect that same energy into profound trust, into positioning ourselves to calmly observe God's greater work unfold. It demands a distinct kind of inner strength, doesn't it? An inner discipline to hold steady and composed when every impulse within us is to rush forward, to retaliate, or to seize control.
This redirection of energy becomes strikingly clearer when we identify where we're so often misplacing it, what this material provocatively calls unnecessary warfare.
Unnecessary warfare. I like that term.
Because if the battle isn't actually ours, then what precisely are we expending our precious energy fighting against? The source makes a compelling point. Stop trying to fight for what God has already declared is yours.
Wow, just stop.
Just stop. That statement alone offers a profound shift in perspective, doesn't it?
It really does.
The insidious nature of some battles is that they were, in fact, never yours to begin with. Some fights, the source highlights, are simply distractions cleverly disguised as legitimate responsibilities.
Distractions dressed as responsibilities. That's sneaky.
It is. Pause and reflect on that for a moment. Distractions, specifically designed to look like regent engagements you must address. The material powerfully emphasizes that the adversary, the enemy, has truly mastered the art of drawing believers into this kind of unnecessary warfare.
Okay.
And crucially, he doesn't always come wielding obvious weapons or in overt confrontation.
That's a critical insight because these distractions, they manifest in incredibly subtle yet powerfully effective ways.
Like how?
Sometimes the enemy comes disguised as obligations that, rather than bringing life and purpose, simply weigh your soul down. He introduces arguments designed to tempt your pride, drawing you into debates that serve absolutely no ultimate divine purpose. He brings accusations that skillfully provoke your defense, making you feel an urgent, overwhelming need to justify yourself.
That need to defend, yeah.
But here's the central error. As meticulously outlined in this source material, the very moment you begin to defend yourself, when God has already declared you victorious, you are stepping into the entirely wrong arena.
The wrong ring.
Exactly. Engaging in a fight that isn't for you. This is precisely why so many people find themselves utterly exhausted, not necessarily because of, sin or wrongdoing, but because they are relentlessly fighting battles they were never instructed or equipped to fight.
They're just shadowboxing.
They are. Swinging aimlessly in the wind, perpetually chasing after external approval, reacting defensively to every single insult, or desperately trying to fix what only God in his infinite capacity can truly heal. And in doing so, they become profoundly exhausted, confused in their purpose, and spiritually dry. It's a self-perpetuating, debilitating cycle of drain.
It's so true. That feeling of spiritual dryness or profound confusion often stems directly from this misdirected energy. And the source reinforces this truth by citing 1 Peter 5.10, a powerful verse which says, But may the God of all grace, who called us to his eternal glory by Christ Jesus, after you have suffered a while, perfect, establish, strengthen, and settle you.
After you've suffered a while.
Right. Now, what's the crucial distinction in that verse, the core message it conveys? It does not say that your relentless effort will settle you,
Okay.
nor does it declare that your fervent defense will perfect you.
Yeah.
It explicitly states that after you have suffered a while, after enduring the pressure, navigating the confusion, living through the season of waiting, God himself will undertake the work.
God himself, not you.
Exactly. He will establish you, he will strengthen you, he will settle you. So the challenging question this source poses to each of us, directly and unequivocally, is this. Why are you still trying to settle things with your own limited hands?
That's a tough question. And it brings us to a really vital differentiation. There is a clear distinction between genuine spiritual endurance and engaging in unnecessary warfare.
Okay, explain that difference.
Endurance, the material explains, occurs within the will and divine alignment of God. Warfare, on the other hand, so often begins when you deliberately step outside of that alignment, when you take matters into your own hands.
Yeah.
Think about it. When you feel an overwhelming need to respond to every single criticism leveled against you, you are effectively stepping out of your God-given assignment.
You're off track.
Completely. When you attempt to carry burdens that only God is truly capable of carrying, you are taking on a battle that is fundamentally not yours. When you believe your finite words can fix what only God can restore, you are willfully walking into a burden that will inevitably drain every ounce of your spiritual and emotional energy.
Yeah.
This is precisely what the adversary desires. For you to be too utterly tired to believe, too exhausted to worship, too worn out to simply stand still in your assigned place.
Let's delve into some powerful historical examples from ancient texts that really illustrate this principle in action, starting with Moses at the Red Sea.
A classic.
It's a moment etched into history, isn't it? The Israelites, having just escaped centuries of captivity, find themselves trapped between the surging waters of the Red Sea and the thundering advance of Pharaoh's army. Predictably, the people panicked.
Understandable.
They cried out in overwhelming fear, and they bitterly blamed Moses for their predicament. Why did you bring us out here to die?
Yeah.
But what did Moses do? He didn't argue with their accusations. He didn't attempt to part the sea with debate or fight back with his own emotions. The material notes that he simply stood still.
Stood still. In the face of that,
He obeyed the clear voice of God. Exodus 14.14 powerfully recounts, "The Lord will fight for you, and you shall hold your peace."
hold your peace. Wow.
It's a moment of profound trust in the face of utterly overwhelming fear and immense external pressure.
And that, for me, is the profound, enduring lesson, isn't it? Moses didn't need to lift a physical sword. He only needed to lift his faith.
All right.
The earth-shattering miracle didn't occur because he fought with human strength. It occurred because he profoundly trusted. This narrative tells us there is immense strength found in silence when God himself is speaking on your behalf.
Strength and silence.
Yeah. There is undeniable power in maintaining peace when your enemies are shouting all around you, relentlessly. There's a divine strategy embedded within stillness, especially when your human flesh desperately yearns to react, to control. You don't need to argue for your destiny. You don't need to convince anyone that you are chosen. The favor of God on your life is simply not up for debate. Allow God to do what only he can do.
Let go.
Let go. Because when you overstep and attempt to control what he has already declared or promised, you are, quite literally, delaying your own breakthrough. Moses' unwavering obedience, even amidst the surrounding chaos and panic, was absolutely fundamental to the outcome.
Another powerful example of this principle, this stillness and trust, is found in the life of David, long before he ever became Israel's king.
Right, this shepherd boy.
Exactly. He was anointed and chosen by God long before he ever saw the throne, yet he spent years being relentlessly hunted by King Saul, often insulted by his own brothers, and doubted by countless individuals around him.
A really tough position.
Incredibly tough. But David consistently refused to fight for what was already his by divine promise. He didn't lift a hand against Saul, even when presented with clear opportunities to do so.
Even when Saul was vulnerable.
Exactly. He patiently waited on God's perfect timing. It speaks to a deep, profound understanding that some matters are simply not for you to contend for with human strength or manipulation.
He understood with profound clarity that God's promises don't require our panic or our frantic efforts to be fulfilled. They simply require our sustained obedience.
Obedience again?
Yes. This truth is beautifully echoed in 2 Timothy 2.24, which wisely advises, "And a servant of the Lord must not quarrel, but be gentle to all, able to teach, patience."
Gentle, able to teach, patient, not argumentative.
Precisely. This isn't just an abstract idea, it's a deeply practical application. You do not need to quarrel or argue to prove you are called. You do not need to shout to ensure you are seen. You do not need to meticulously correct every single critic to maintain inner peace.
So what do you do?
Instead, allow your life and your consistent actions to speak louder than any reaction you might be tempted to give. Let your character endure and outlive the attacks leveled against you.
Let your character speak.
Exactly. The fundamental truth revealed here is this. If you are always actively fighting, you are fundamentally not resting.
Okay.
If you are constantly explaining yourself, you are not truly trusting. If you are perpetually trying to prove your worth, you are not genuinely believing. God is not asking you to fight for victory. He is asking you to stand in the victory that has already been won. It's a powerful call to cease battling for what God has already claimed, to stop resisting where God has already clearly spoken, and to stop frantically reaching for control when you are being called to simply rest in Him.
This leads us compellingly to a powerful and I think often misunderstood concept. Restraint.
Restraint. Not a popular word these days.
Not really. Let's now examine moments when the adversary actively desires a reaction from us, but God, conversely, requires profound restraint. It turns out, not every battle is designed to be answered with force or immediate retaliation.
Okay.
Some battles are specifically designed to test your capacity to remain still, calm, and composed, even when every fiber of your being, your raw emotions, your wounded pride, your logical reactive mind screams at you to respond.
That's hard.
It is. The source explains that the enemy doesn't always manifest with visible weapons like a sword or through direct, overt confrontation. Instead, he often appears through subtle accusations, through persistent insults, through repeated misunderstandings, and through cleverly laid traps designed specifically to bait you into engagement.
Bait you.
Yeah.
His ultimate goal is not always to defeat you with overwhelming power. Sometimes it is far simpler to exhaust you through endless distractions.
Just wear you down.
Exactly. He wants your attention. He wants your voice to be entirely consumed by his noise. He wants to relentlessly steal your peace. He wants you to react precisely so that you step away from the place of authority, the position of calm, and the alignment that God has purposefully placed you in.
Okay.
But the very moment you react to his provocation, you have already stepped out of alignment with God's plan. You've taken your eyes off your true, divine assignment, and instead of standing in power, you find yourself utterly drained by arguments that lead absolutely nowhere, often spiraling into deeper frustration.
Yeah, you get sucked in.
You do. Proverbs 29.11 offers profound, timeless wisdom on this. A fool vents all his feelings, but a wise man holds them back.
Holds them back.
This verse isn't merely about managing anger. It speaks to the deep maturity inherent in exercising restraint. The wise understand that not everything requires a response. Not every word deserves an answer, and most certainly not every accusation necessitates a defensive explanation.
That takes wisdom.
It does. There is exponentially more strength found in restraint than in immediate reaction. And that kind of profound strength is precisely what keeps you grounded, centered, and at peace. This is critical because the adversary's goal is to violently pull you away from that centered presence and into panic, to dismantle your stillness and transform it into scattered, frantic movement.
Let's consider Nehemiah, a true master of restraint, right?
Oh, absolutely. Great example.
He was diligently building the wall, a monumental task assigned by God, and he was completely single-mindedly focused on the work itself. But his enemies tried relentlessly over and over again to distract him.
They really did. Sanballat and Tobiah.
They invited him to meetings under false pretenses, they widely spread false reports about him, and they attempted to instill fear to halt his progress and his divine mission.
Trying everything.
Yet Nehemiah famously didn't come down from his post. In Nehemiah 6.3, he sent a powerful, unwavering message. So I sent messengers to them saying, I am doing a great work so that I cannot come down. Why should the work cease while I leave it and go down to you?
Boom. Just like that. Calm, direct, unwavering.
His response was just perfect. It demonstrated supreme focus.
Nehemiah possessed incredible discernment. He immediately recognized the distraction for precisely what it was, a diversion.
He saw right through it.
He did. He resolutely refused the invitation to defend himself or to engage in their petty squabbles. He simply stayed exactly where God had placed him, committed to his task. This is a crucial, vital lesson for so many of us today. You don't come down from what God has called you to do simply to explain yourself.
Right.
You don't abandon your post, your divine purpose, to attend meetings fueled by doubt, by fear, or by the corrosive nature of gossip. You don't forsake your mission to win small arguments with people who genuinely do not understand your calling.
Mm-hmm.
And you absolutely do not leave your God-given purpose to chase the chaotic noise of the enemy's disruptive agendas.
Because the consequences are serious.
They are. Because the moment you walk away from what God has assigned to you, you risk stepping into something that was never meant to involve you, something designed to drain you. The adversary doesn't necessarily need to destroy your gift if he can simply distract you from ever effectively using it.
That's a scary thought.
It is. Nehemiah never descended from the wall, and consequently, the wall was finished. The monumental work was completed precisely because the builder staunchly refused to be baited by the enemy's provocations.
Oh, we often do get baited, don't we?
Tragically, yes. Some of us are so incredibly easily baited, we hold no thoughts captive, we lack discernment, and we simply react instinctively.
React first, think later.
Exactly. We speak before we truly pray, we react before we reflect, and by the time we recognize what's happening, we've already stepped into battles that God never intended for us to fight.
Mm.
The adversary knows with certainty that he cannot steal your ultimate purpose, but he will relentlessly try to hijack your focus. And he often achieves this by skillfully stirring your emotions.
Ah, the emotions.
Yes. He touches your feelings to disrupt your faith, to pull you off balance. He whispers insidious lies so you'll begin speaking them as truth. He masterfully uses offense as a doorway to keep you constantly distracted and perpetually reactive.
It's a trap.
It is. But reaction is truly expensive. Every single time you react when God has called you to remain quiet, you lose irreplaceable strength. Every time you defend yourself when God has declared he will speak for you, you lose precious, unrecoverable time. And every time you attempt to handle a situation in your own limited fleshly capacity, you inadvertently delay what could have been released and resolved in a much deeper, more powerful spiritual way.
Wow. For the ultimate, most profound example of restraint, though, we really have to turn to the wisdom texts and reflect on the narrative of Jesus before his ultimate sacrifice.
The ultimate example.
He was falsely accused, he was lied about repeatedly, he was slapped, mocked, and utterly rejected by those he came to save. Yet, in the face of such immense provocation, he opened not his mouth.
Incredible stillness.
Why? Because he knew his ultimate purpose.
Right.
He didn't permit the insults or the physical pain to pull him off his predetermined path. He didn't allow the suffering to provoke a reactive response. He deliberately chose profound restraint because he understood true authority. The greatest authority, this material reminds us, does not need to shout. It simply stands in unwavering power and peace. Isaiah 53.7 profoundly describes this. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He was led as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before its shearers is silent, so he opened not his mouth.
That's silence. It wasn't a sign of weakness, was it? It was a demonstration of immense power.
Exactly.
That profound restraint was not born of fear. It was an act of complete unwavering control. That quietness was not a surrender to the enemy's will. It was a perfect surrender to the will of the Father. And through that very surrender came victory for all of humanity. Many believers unfortunately lose battles not due to a lack of inherent strength, but due to a profound lack of restraint.
They react too quickly.
Yes. They lose their peace over even the smallest offenses. They lose valuable time engaged in emotional conversations that are unproductive and go nowhere. They lose their spiritual clarity because they incessantly respond to every piece of noise directed at them.
Caught in the noise.
But when you truly know who has sent you and what your divine assignment is, you don't feel the compulsion to answer every single voice. When you profoundly understand your identity and your core being in Christ, you no longer chase external validation from others. And when you genuinely trust God's intricate process, you do not panic when you are misunderstood or falsely accused.
That's freedom.
It is. Restraint is, in fact, a powerful strategic weapon. When used wisely, it meticulously protects your spirit, it preserves your unique anointing and calling, and it keeps you from falling directly into the traps that are specifically sent to derail your purpose and destiny.
So what's the practical takeaway there?
So, a vital piece of counsel. Do not be quick to defend yourself. Instead, let your consistent character and your actions speak far louder than your fleeting emotions. Let your growth and your transformation testify powerfully of your purpose. And let your silence be the sacred, powerful space where God himself moves on your behalf.
Let silence be the space where God moves. I like that. Another powerful narrative illustrating restraint leading directly to elevation is the remarkable story of Joseph.
Ah, Joseph. Another fantastic example.
He was tragically thrown into a pit by his own brothers, then cruelly sold into slavery, falsely accused by Potiphar's wife, and subsequently unjustly thrown into prison. I mean, he endured betrayal, abandonment, and profound injustice at multiple turns.
Just one thing after another.
Right. But through all of this relentless adversity, he never reacted in revenge. He didn't argue or defend himself when he was falsely accused. He didn't repay evil for evil. He consistently kept his heart open and his integrity entirely intact, even in the darkest, most unjust circumstances.
Remarkable character.
Truly. And when he finally stood before Pharaoh, a moment of immense power and unparalleled opportunity, he didn't dwell on the betrayal or the injustice he had suffered.
No complaining.
No.
Well-
He brought forth profound wisdom. He presented clear, actionable solutions to Pharaoh's complex problems. He spoke with immense clarity, not with complaint or bitterness, and precisely because of his profound restraint and unwavering character, he was elevated to a position of immense power, second only to Pharaoh himself.
Wow. From prisoner to prime minister, essentially.
Exactly. This narrative powerfully echoes the wisdom found in Romans 12:19. Beloved, do not avenge yourselves, but rather give place to wrath. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord.
Give place to wrath, meaning let God handle it.
Let God handle it.
You do not need to chase after justice when God has already unequivocally declared that he will handle it with perfect righteousness. You do not need to respond to every false word or accusation when God is actively building something far greater and more enduring in your life. You do not need to speak up every single time you are wronged, when your silence is, in fact, a powerful statement filled with faith.
Silence filled with faith.
Silence, in this profound context, is not a retreat. It is a profound declaration of trust. It is an act of deep worship. It is an unequivocal statement that God can accomplish infinitely more with your stillness and your surrender than you could ever achieve with your frantic reactions.
So the call is clear.
Yes. Stay diligently at your post. Keep building, keep praying, keep trusting, and allow restraint to be your deliberate, powerful response when the enemy relentlessly demands a reaction.
This brings us to our final crucial truth for today, one that really encapsulates much of what we've discussed. Victory belongs to the obedient, not necessarily to the loud.
Obedient, not loud. Okay.
There is a distinct kind of victory that doesn't arise from brute force. It doesn't come through noise or outward displays of power, and it certainly doesn't come from impressive appearances. Instead, it emerges through total, unwavering alignment with God's specific instructions.
Alignment.
It comes through the consistent, steady walk of obedience. It manifests through decisions that profoundly reflect deep trust, rather than fleeting human emotion.
And this is often a significant stumbling block for many people, isn't it?
How so?
Well, many individuals miss their breakthrough moments, not because they were inherently weak, but because they were too impulsive, too quick to act solely on their own understanding or their preferred methods.
Acting on impulse.
Exactly. God doesn't always lead through dramatic, thunderous displays or grand, sweeping pronouncements. Sometimes, maybe often, he leads with the collateral, often counterintuitive instructions that don't immediately appeal to our human logic or our sense of what's practical.
Right, instructions that seem weird.
Exactly. And it is precisely in those seemingly illogical or simple instructions where the real, profound breakthrough is often hidden.
Let's look at an example. Consider the monumental story of Joshua and the walls of Jericho.
Okay. Big walls. Big problem.
Huge problem, but they were not instructed to launch a conventional military attack. They were not told to painstakingly build weapons or elaborate siege engines. Instead, they were given directions that sounded nothing like typical warfare.
What were they?
March around the city for 6 days, then march again on the 7th day, and at a specific signal, they were to shout and then witness the immense walls simply fall.
Marching and shouting. Not exactly standard military tactics.
Not at all. Joshua 6.20 confirms this astounding supernatural event. So the people shouted when the priests blew the trumpets, and it happened when the people heard the sound of the trumpet, and the people shouted with a great shout that the wall fell down flat.
Just flat.
Then the people went up into the city, every man straight before him, and they took the city. It's a vivid account of a very unconventional victory.
This was not ordinary military strategy. This was a powerful demonstration of obedience under very specific divine instruction, and it brought about absolutely supernatural results.
Yeah.
There are breakthroughs in life that simply do not respond to our human strength or our most meticulously planned logic. They respond exclusively to exact obedience.
Exact obedience.
They respond to the believer who listens closely with a humble heart and follows precisely, even when the instructions make no logical sense to their immediate understanding. They respond to the one who doesn't require full intellectual comprehension to move forward in faith.
Trust before understanding.
Exactly. Some instructions from God will indeed not make sense at first glance, but your fundamental job is not to logically make sense of them. Your job is simply to follow them.
Yeah.
And when you follow fully, with complete trust, you walk directly into the victory that was patiently waiting for your obedient yes.
That yes is key.
It is. This also highlights the inherent danger of partial obedience. Sometimes we inadvertently delay what God desires to release in our lives because we attempt to edit his instructions.
Try to improve on them.
Yeah, make them more palatable or logical to us. We obey halfway. We follow until it becomes slightly uncomfortable. We agree until it directly challenges our deep-seated desire for control.
Mm-hmm.
But the profound truth is, halfway obedience is still, fundamentally, disobedience. There is no divine reward for partial submission. There is no breakthrough found in selective agreement. If you genuinely desire to see God's full hand move powerfully on your behalf, you must walk in full, unreserved, and unwavering obedience.
Full obedience. Okay. Another powerful narrative demonstrating this principle is the story of Naaman, the commander afflicted with leprosy.
Ah yes, Naaman the Syrian.
He arrived with great expectation for healing, seeking out the prophet Elisha. But the instructions he received from Elisha didn't align with the grand ceremonial image he had meticulously crafted in his mind.
He expected something dramatic, probably.
Probably. But the command was simple, perhaps even demeaning. Go and dip in the Jordan 7 times.
The muddy Jordan River. Not exactly a spa treatment.
Right. It sounded beneath him. It profoundly offended his pride and his logical understanding. It seemed far too low and too simple for someone of his distinguished status.
But his healing didn't manifest when he questioned the method or when he debated its logic, did it?
No.
Healing came precisely when he finally obeyed without resistance, when he consciously set aside his formidable pride and expectations. 2 Kings 5.14 tells us, "So he went down and dipped 7 times in the Jordan, according to the saying of the man of God, and his flesh was restored like the flesh of a little child, and he was clean."
After obedience.
It happened after obedience, not after convincing, not after elaborate ceremony, but after simply doing exactly what he was told, despite his initial reservation.
That's a clear pattern.
It is. God will frequently test your heart by asking you to engage in actions that directly challenge your pride and your assumptions. He will often place the key to your victory within instructions that specifically demand humility.
Humility. Okay.
He will deliberately hide your next level of spiritual growth or breakthrough behind a direction that seems too simple, too strange, or even too illogical. But your breakthrough is fundamentally not tied to your intellectual understanding. It is inextricably tied to your willingness to trust the voice of God more than your own ideas, your preferences, or your personal comfort zones.
Just over logic sometimes.
Yes, you do not have to feel in complete control to walk in obedience. Obedience isn't about comfort. It's about perfect alignment. It's about staying intimately close to God's way, even when it directly challenges your preferred way. It's about honoring his command, even when it doesn't match your personal preference. And it's about walking forward, even when it stretches your pride and makes you deeply uncomfortable. God is not seeking the most talented, the most outwardly impressive, or the most intellectually informed.
Right.
He is profoundly looking for the most surrendered, the most humble, and the most faithful.
Surrender, humble, faithful. Okay. The ultimate profound act of trust and obedience we can reflect upon has to be the story of Abraham and Isaac.
Oh, the binding of Isaac.
A heavy one.
Incredibly heavy. Abraham was told by God to offer his beloved son Isaac on the altar, his promised heir. There was no explanation given, no detailed timeline, just a clear, stark, and deeply challenging command.
Unimaginable.
And though it defied all human reasoning and logic, Abraham obeyed. He took the arduous steps, he walked up the mountain, he prepared to sacrifice the very promise he had waited years, even decades, to finally receive.
And just as he raised the knife?
God himself stopped him. A ram was miraculously provided in the thicket. Why? Because Abraham obeyed without hesitation.
Obedience unlocked everything.
Exactly. Genesis 22:18 powerfully proclaims, "In your seed all the nations of the earth shall be blessed because you have obeyed my voice."
Yeah.
His obedience didn't just impact him, it unlocked generational blessing.
Wow.
Obedience profoundly positioned Abraham for favor that extended far beyond his own lifetime, impacting countless generations that followed. And that same principle, that same powerful pattern still profoundly applies to us today. That's incredible. Some of us are diligently praying for things that obedience and obedience alone can unlock.
So we might be stuck.
You might be. You're not stuck because God is silent or inactive. You might be stuck because you haven't yet moved on what he has already clearly spoken or instructed. The battle, as we've explored, is truly not yours. It belongs to the Lord.
Right.
But your obedience, that is your responsibility. That is your essential, non-negotiable part in the divine promise. God brings the breakthrough, but you must bring the surrender. God opens the door, but you must courageously walk through it in faith.
Our part is surrender and obedience.
Precisely. Stop looking for true power in external performance or outward validation. It's not found in the way you impress people. It's not in the eloquence of your speech. It's not in your appearance or any superficial show.
Where is it then?
Victory, true and lasting victory, is found in the quiet, often unseen decisions you make when no one else is watching. And the specific instructions you follow when they don't immediately make sense, in the unwavering faith you demonstrate when there is no immediate tangible reward in sight. That, my friends listening, is truly where the battle is won. God responds to hearts that are perfectly aligned with his, to minds that are humbly submitted to his wisdom, and to hands that are ready and surrendered to his will. If you genuinely desire God to move for you in mighty ways, then you must move with him. Follow his lead, trust his perfect way, walk steadfastly in obedience, and then observe how every formidable wall, every imposing enemy, and every seemingly closed door responds not to your limited efforts, but to your faith-filled, courageous obedience.
Wow. What an insightful exploration today. We're really digging into letting go of battles that aren't ours, embracing strategic stillness, the profound power found in restraint, and the transformative nature of unwavering obedience.
It really ties together, doesn't it? Stillness, restraint, obedience, all flowing from trust.
It does. We've truly learned, I think, that genuine strength often lies not in our frantic efforts to control every variable, but in our willingness to surrender to a greater, divinely orchestrated plan. Allowing a different kind of victory to unfold, one that is not of our own making, but uniquely orchestrated by God himself. The battle is truly not yours, dear listener. It unequivocally belongs to the Lord.
Amen.
And victory consistently follows those who trust him enough to obey without hesitation. Stand firm, walk in obedience, and witness God do what your strength could never accomplish.
And if we connect all of this to the broader picture of our daily lives, it really means fundamentally reassessing how we approach everyday challenges, doesn't it? From minor frustrations that pop up to major life crises.
How we react first.
Exactly. Is our very first instinct always to react, to defend, or to try to meticulously control every single variable? Or is it, instead, to first seek understanding, to practice profound restraint, and to consciously align ourselves with a higher purpose?
That's the challenge.
It is. This raises a deeply important question for each of you listening. In what specific areas of your life are you currently fighting a battle that isn't truly yours? And what would it genuinely look like practically to truly surrender that fight and simply obey the quiet guidance you've been given?
That's a great reflection point.
So as you go about your week, maybe consider this thought for reflection. Where in your life are you being invited to simply stand still and witness a greater power, God's power, at work on your behalf?
Where can you let go?
Exactly. What specific burden or struggle can you release today by truly trusting that some fights are simply not meant for you to bear or to win through your own effort? This isn't about apathy or ignoring legitimate responsibilities. It's about a strategic, powerful surrender.
Strategic surrender. I like that.
It's about wisely discerning where your energy is most effectively placed and where it is truly powerful to simply step back and allow God to move. The profound implications for your peace of mind, your unwavering focus, and your ultimate effectiveness in life are truly immense.
Thank you so much for joining us for this session today. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep discovering those unexpected paths to profound peace.